What's the matter, Dougal?
You, talking and breathing, and last night all but a corpse. How did you manage that, Connor MacLeod?
Would you rather I was dead?
It's not natural. He's in league with Lucifer.
Don't say that, Kate.
I'll say it. You've the devil in you.
We've been kinsmen 20 years.
Connor MacLeod was my kinsman. I don't know who you are.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Highlander Rewatched. This is part 3 of our ongoing podcast series discussing the original Highlander motion picture. So, if you haven't heard part 1 or 2 yet, just go back in your podcast app or on SoundCloud or wherever you're listening to us and listen to parts 1 and 2 of this series. In our first episode, we talk about a lot of behind-the-scenes info on the cast and crew, Connor's fight in Madison Square Garden, and how we got into Highlander. In episode 2, we delve into Connor's first battle with the Kurgan, interesting police interrogation techniques, and the beautiful Scottish countryside. I'm one of your rewatchers, Keith.
This is Kyle. I'm another one of your rewatchers.
And this is Eamon.
And this podcast is all about our love of all things Highlander. So make sure to subscribe on iTunes or any other major podcasting app and join us, your rewatchers, as we revisit the Highlander motion pictures, the series, books, comics, video games, and more. Okay, so let's get back into our discussion of Highlander the motion picture.
So now we meet the present version of the Kurgan. When he's listening to a radio, like, broadcast about the decapitation at Madison Square Garden.
Right.
And the broadcast says, and this actually makes it into the Queen recording of Give Me the Prize.
Which they actually got Clancy Brown to come back in and record. Like, they didn't take a sample from the movie. They got him in the studio to be like, oh, we want that dialogue.
That's awesome.
In this. Like, that was very intentional to have this part of that song.
Yeah, but the recording goes, a head which at this time has no name. And it's like, we've said the name like 10 times at this point. The cop just said it in the scene before this, that it's Amon Facile.
Yep.
Well,
Anyway.
I guess maybe the press doesn't know yet.
Yeah.
We do know later that the cops have not released all the info to the press.
And then the Kurgan goes, I know his name.
Right.
But again, like, all these people seem to just know each other.
Right.
And that's kind of cool. There's like an Encyclopedia Britannica of immortals.
Yep.
Right.
So like they all know each other.
Well, I'm gonna say 2 theories I have here. So one, I believe the Kurgan is the one that killed the guy in New Jersey.
Well, yeah, he's driving from
Because
New
he's
Jersey.
driving on that side of the bridge. Like, he's coming to New York. So it's like, who killed this guy?
Yeah, that
It's him.
is, yes.
I think that's correct, right?
It's in the script, too.
Oh, is it? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. And then the other thing I will posit is at the beginning of this movie, there are only 4 people left. We're not missing any other immortals in this story. Like, because, like, the cops have not brought up any other serial killings. Like, in a different version of the script, they could be like, there's been 8 murders, or there's been a dozen murders. You know what I mean? Like, and they're all stories we don't get to hear about, but we just kind of know these battles are going on in New York because that's where the gathering is. It's only ever these 4. I think there's only 4 people left, and that's where the gathering is. So, that's pretty crazy, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially because the show establishes that the gathering is going on when the show starts.
Right.
Yeah.
And we've already seen him kill 12.
Yeah.
We've already seen Duncan MacLeod, as of season 1, kill 12 people. And we're aware that more have happened. So
Yeah.
interesting.
He's driving over. He puts on tape into the deck, and it's "Give Me the Prize" by Queen,
Which rocks.
which is
It's
fucking
an
awesome.
amazing song.
It's
I love
really
that
good.
song. Yeah.
So, as a former musicologist, I was getting into like the musical stuff in this movie because I think it's really good. Actually, and we didn't even mention in our intro
like Michael Kamen.
Michael Kamen, who did the
Yeah.
score, and we'll talk about him a little more when the score becomes a little more prevalent.
What company is the theme from this? Their
New Line Cinema,
That's New Line, which
no
did Ninja
longer-
Turtles to loop it all back around.
Yeah, that's right. The beginning. I remember playing that VHS all the time when I was a kid, and the Highlander theme was the opening to Ninja Turtles, essentially, because it's the New Line Cinema logo coming on the screen. The Highlander theme has gotten good mileage out of it.
Which, to be clear, we kind of described Princes of the Universe as the Highlander theme earlier. Now we're talking about the scored
The
music.
orchestral, right.
The orchestral theme that accompanies MacLeod.
Right. So, interesting musical stuff happening here. I did notice that a lot of the Queen music incorporates one very specific element from Princes of the Universe, which is, as far as, like, if you hear Freddie Mercury talk about it, like, they all consider Princes of the Universe to be the Highlander theme.
Right.
There's this chromatic guitar riff that you hear in Princes of the Universe.
Which chromatic is half steps.
Half steps, right. That exists in this song, and it also exists in some other ones, too. Like, there's this element that ends up being kind of this, like, little musical thread that Queen has, like, connected their songs with. It's like, oh, there's this is all part of the same sort of kind of musical universe, as it were, which I thought was really cool. But also,
The Princes of the Musical Universe.
the other thing that I thought was interesting just about this song, Give Me the Prize, the lyrics of it, it's like, I'm the master of your destiny, which is like an interesting, like this kind of fatalism that exists within this thing, like predetermined. But also one of the big lines of it is I am, especially it's interesting because the Kurgan is playing it at this point, which is I am the god of kingdom come, is a lyric. Like, there's multiple religious references like in the Queen music, which I think is kind of interesting. Adding again to like a Christian interpretation of this movie. Just wanted to bring that up. Food for thought.
Food for thought.
So then he goes to just check into a hotel, and basically a guy who looks sort of like Ed Norton with herpes like admits
This guy has visible cold sores.
yeah,
That's a big old herp on his face.
with his like old black sidekick.
Yeah,
I don't know what that's all about.
I told you not to talk to the guests.
So he like gets admitted. Obviously, like the Kurgan's loaded for some reason.
So let's talk about the Kurgan for a minute. So he's like, what? He looks 7 feet tall. I'm sure he's not, but this is one big dude.
Yeah.
And he's like a punk rocker.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
Right. And again, I think that's another testament to the times that, like, how did they paint him as a villain? And it's like they give him this, like, punk rock and roll persona, which also I think accompanies, like, the music. Like, there's this Queen element.
Right.
And also, like, the Give Me the Prize song is very, like, it's a little more heavy metal. Like, if you were to kind of dissect all the Queen songs, it's like some are a little more like easy listening, like 1 Year of Love, which is played at one point, is a little more like Motown-y sort of song. But then this song is like real heavy. This guy's like a rock and roll dude. But then all the flashback stuff is all orchestral.
Yeah.
So like there's this dichotomy of like rock and roll and instrumental classical music, which is neat.
One thing I wanted to say about this Kurgan, 1986 Kurgan, is Clancy Brown's thoughts on the character.
Yeah.
So he says, this is a quote I read from an interview. The Kurgan is in a heavy metal sort of getup. Wouldn't it be interesting if you wore a business suit and bowler hat? That's scary. You expect a heavy metal punker with skulls on his jacket to be a badass, but the really tough, mean, and nasty people don't necessarily wear clothes like that and look like that. So there was a chance to make a real statement, but I think the whole idea was to stay away from statements and just tell a good guy, bad guy story.
Well, that also would have been especially interesting in the context of the 80s, because, like, you're still in this super intense Cold War mentality. This is, like, the era of greed is good, like Gordon Gekko, Wall Street, give me the money, give me the coke, give me the women. Like, this is the era of that. So that might have actually been an interesting take on it in this time period specifically.
Well, speaking to that, I mean, we haven't talked about like the Kurgan's backstory, which is not really like laid out in this. It's laid out in the novel.
And it's laid out, I guess Ramirez kind of gives an overview of who he is later, you know, like at 20 minutes from now.
But I think it's very interesting. So the Kurgan is Russian.
Which I thought was meaningful in this period.
Exactly.
Like,
this is the Cold War. Like, of course the villain is Russian. Like, what else would he be?
You're still living under the threat of globothermonuclear war.
Right.
Like,
the same way, like, early 2000s movies, all the villains were terrorists. Like, it's like, oh, because that's something that America was dealing with at the time, so the villains in the films kind of reflected what our real-life adversary was.
yeah, it is interesting, and part of the, like, reason for this materialism in the 80s is because, like, you're living in this world in which the Earth could end, like, which is also an interesting thing, I think, about the prize. Like, I feel like part of what defines the 80s is, like, this materialism that develops when you're in a world in which, like, the entire eastern seaboard of the United States could cease to be at some point. And, like, that was, like, a fear and a stress that people lived with in this period. And like meanwhile during this you have like this supernatural struggle between two superpowers, Connor and the Kurgan, going on at the same time. You know, he kind of, the Kurgan in some ways if he was, again, especially if he was in like a suit and a bowler hat, like he kind of represents this one way of coping with it, which is to embrace this kind of fatalistic materialism and run with it. So then the Kurgan puts together his clip-together sword.
Yep.
Which is so awesome and, like, utterly unrealistic, but I don't care because it's that awesome.
The first time I watched this sword made me angry. And now I think it's awesome. Like, the first time I saw it, I was like, all right, so if you're in an intense sword fight, there's no way this thing's holding together.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
It's going to fall apart. Like, there's a reason why a sword is one piece.
Yep.
Right.
But it's, like, so cool when he's putting it together. And this is a cool, like, training montage.
I also like the idea of like the sword is mechanical in a way, and I think there's an element to that we'll get into later, like as we learn about Connor a little more. There's like this kind of nature versus this thing that's like artificial or built. You know what I mean? Like that's a theme that's in a lot of literature and movies that you can see. Like like Lord of the Rings is a
Lord of the Rings, Star Wars.
Yeah,
they all have this.
They all have
concept.
that sort of concept of like he has to put together this thing. Like it's got moving parts to it. So I think that's a compelling antithesis of what Connor could be.
Hi, I'm Candy.
Of course you are.
Also, also this scene when he like puts it together, like it's a little like mini montage of him clipping it together and then like training or exercising with it, which he like spins it around.
Yep.
It's kind of cool. I don't know. I have no idea what he's
It's
doing.
odd, but it's cool.
I like it. It looks cool. It looks menacing.
Yeah.
Like he's very effective in this role, even though it sounds like he wishes it was more Clancy Brown.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great.
I mean, I'm not prepared to say this is a deep character, but I'm very prepared to say he acts the shit out of it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like,
So this little scene where he like spins the sword around, that was choreographed by the guy that choreographed Starlight Express, which is, if you don't know,
The Andrew Lloyd Webber?
the Andrew Lloyd Webber musical where people go around on roller skates for the whole thing. It's ridiculous.
Wow.
Anyway, he did some music videos as well with Russell, and so he came in and choreographed this like sword montage, which I thought was crazy.
Yeah.
Also, something we didn't mention earlier, I don't know, I was trying to find like some info on this, is how they arrived at his alias of Russell Nash, because the director's name is Russell McKay, and I was like, oh, did they name the main character after the director, or did that come previously?
no idea.
Who knows?
Yeah, I can't remember.
Just
The Shadow Knows, directed by Russell McKay.
I love that movie.
He did The Shadow?
Yeah,
I like that movie too.
It's a really good movie. And
Yeah.
honestly, all right, so let's
Starring Alec Baldwin as the
People-
old-timey superhero, The Shadow.
Yeah, people shit on that movie. I think it's really good.
It is really good. I watched it like maybe a month ago. It has like, if you like Highlander, I think you'll like that. Like it has a lot of like that same directing flair. Also, glass exploding all over the place,
Like crazy.
like crazy.
Also,
but no,
an amazing score in The Shadow. Like,
yeah, it's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a good movie, and I think it's like maybe a better made movie, like a little bit better than like Highlander is. Like,
Well, it's got a higher budget.
higher budget, like, but it has Alec Baldwin, who's great. Ian McKellen. It has Jonathan Winters, who I love.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Tim Curry. I don't know.
Curry,
Watch The Shadow. It's great. But I'll bring that Shadow up a little bit more later.
Who knows?
The Shadow knows.
Peter Boyle is also in that
Peter
movie.
Boyle's the taxi driver. It's very good. So anyway, moving on from the scene in the hotel where if you need broads blow, just dial O to connect to the clerk.
Says Herpes Ed Norton.
That's right.
So now we're back in the police lab, and Brenda gets like shards of metal delivered by some doofus. Like
Some
this guy,
goon.
some lab goon shows up with these shards of metal from like the body, I guess.
You want these shards of metal?
So she does like a test on it through like, this is like the first instance of like computer magic in this movie. And there's like a computer printout and it's like a bunch of numbers and it's like absorbent. Like none of this makes any sense at all. But I guess it dates the sword back to like
She
600.
carbon dates it, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's what this is.
Omicron. Oh, that's a Greek letter.
How many members of this fraternity are in the Seacouver area?
Right. So I guess this is the kind of essentially the beginning or the first steps in this like police
Yeah.
story. So like there's a couple stories going on. Like we've got this like Connor story, and then there's this thread which is like a police like this is the mystery story.
Right.
We are back now at the Madison Square Garden garage. Presumably it's maybe like the next day or whatever. And Connor is there with a lighter, and he's I guess he's there to retrieve his sword. So he gets it, but then Brenda, I guess, shows up, and she's looking for extra evidence. So she ends up recovering a piece of metal from a column. There's the same
From
column.
that pillar.
Yes, from the pillar that Connor got his sword stuck in.
And she has like a metal detector
Right.
that she's like looking for this metal with. I thought that was kind of cool.
Yeah. If you're a Highlander fan like we are, you probably have some pretty cool Highlander swag from back in the good old Highlander heydays. But did you know there are brand new Highlander sword replicas available through the official Highlander Facebook page? Head over to the official Highlander Facebook page for beautiful high-quality replicas of Duncan MacLeod's Musashi Samurai Sword, or check out Connor MacLeod's beautiful Genai Samurai. Handles are made with a nearly unbreakable Kevlar carbon compound and are complete with all the detail you remember from the Highlander film and television series. The handmade katana blades were created using high-carbon steel. The blades are heat-tempered, then water-quenched for a consistent hardness, and then adorned with a Hammond tempered line to create a truly awesome display sword and tribute to the Highlander franchise. Stop on by the official Highlander Facebook page to order your Highlander swords today.
So now we go to the bar.
Right,
Yeah.
so they end up at Peter McManus's bar, which is a real bar in Chelsea.
Oh, so we should say she knows somebody's in the garage with her.
Yeah, she
and
hears, like, a can
like
rustle.
hightails it out of there.
Right.
Yeah, and it's Mac.
So she hightails it out of there to this bar.
Right.
And then I guess he follows her there because he's a creeper.
Yeah. And to Kyle's point, like this sequence makes me really question Connor's character because this made me really uncomfortable. And I'm like, what am I supposed to think of this guy? Like,
So I know she like orders a glass of rosé or something. I'm not really sure what she's drinking.
in the script, it's vodka.
It's not. It's
not in
and
this,
It's
yeah.
not served in either of those glasses. Rosé would not be served in that glass, or
Or maybe she's supposed to be drinking brandy because Connor brings her brandy later.
maybe.
But she
That
just
is a
orders
glass
the
you would drink
usual.
brandy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So she starts drinking this tall glass of brandy when Mac walks in.
Yep.
Right. It also should be noted that there's another Queen song playing, which is "1 Year of Love." Which I like this song a lot. It's we mentioned this a little earlier. It's kind of got that doo-woppy sort of Motown 50s vibe to it. I think it was written by the drummer. Although this song kind of got shafted in this movie, it's not supposed to be in this place. Like, first off, it's just background music. Like, it's not the soundtrack. You know what I mean? Like, it's just playing kind of on the jukebox or whatever. But like, the entire point of the song is about like, 1 Year of Love is better than a lifetime alone. And the song is written for the scene where Connor decides it's okay to fall in love with Brenda. And they felt like they had too much music and it wouldn't fit. And so they kind of like just stuck this cue in the bar scene. Like,
Which sucks because this song has like its dark mirror, which is Who Wants to Live Forever.
right.
Which is like this whole song with the opposite thesis that, living forever is pain, and the cost of living alone, effectively, in the context of the scene, the song is about, don't form these attachments because the pain that you'll feel later isn't worth it.
Right.
Whereas this song is the mirror to that, it's better, it's worth paying the price to have like love for a moment, even if you suffer for it later. So that's like a great mirroring. So it really does get shafted.
Yeah, it does get shafted in this place. So they have this odd conversation together.
Calling it a conversation is loose. They have a series of things they say to each other in each other's direction.
So talk about this, Kyle.
So she orders her drink, and she seems to have a rapport with the bartender because she is a usual here. And then in walks Mac, and he goes, "Double Glenmorangie on the rocks." I wouldn't drink this necessarily on the rocks.
So
but
it should be noted that the three of us, Kyle Heyman and I, are all cheers, everybody. We
Cheers.
are all drinking. Not that for the sound effects album. We are all drinking Glenmorangie. Or if you're from Philadelphia, you would pronounce it Glenmorangie.
Morangie.
Glenmorangie.
That is how I pronounced it.
Because I've pronounced it that way for a long time.
Yeah.
I think that's our accent here.
I'm not prepared to say that Christopher Lambert is saying it right. I'm not invested enough to look up like the perfect Scottish pronunciation. But
Do we want to talk about Scotch drinking? Because I know
Yes.
people do talk about this. Like, I've seen this on message boards online. Like, this Scotch order he delivers is nuts. I don't know if I completely agree with that. I mean, we're all drinking scotch right now. We're all drinking it neat, which in the alcoholic world, which we all are, neat just means without anything. No ice.
Just
no
put it in
water,
a glass.
No mixers. It's just what it is. I think this is perfectly fine to drink that way. Do you guys have opinions on whiskey or scotch?
I say you drink it neat. Maybe if you're gonna, he orders it on the rocks. I would say 1 rock tops, and then get your fingers wet and put a few drips of water in it.
That sounds good. I'm okay. Like, it depends on my mood. Like, if I want rocks in there, and usually it's like not little ice cubes, like a big piece of ice that will melt very slowly. Eamon, what are your thoughts?
I'm from the school of drinking that I'll drink whatever you hand me. So I'm not much of a connoisseur, so I don't have much input into this.
Explains the amount of ball sweat you've drank.
Yikes.
Sorry.
Nope, that was, I lobbed that one.
But you're driving towards a point.
Well, I know a lot of people say, like, as a Scotsman, this is, like, sacrilege, that he has drank this on the rocks. I don't know if I really am completely... I mean, maybe I'm the outlier here, but it's like, whatever, man. Like, if he wants to drink it on the rocks, I'm fine with that. You know, I actually, I mean, not being from Scotland, if there's any Scottish people out there that would say, like, if this is definitely, like, a big, like, social faux pas to order it this way, let us know.
Also, maybe Connor, he's been alive for a while. I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe he likes it on the rocks now.
Maybe he's just trying to get hammered to forget the horror of the hundreds of years he's lived. I don't know.
No. And then he just shouts over at her, "Go to Madison Square Garden much?" Isn't that it?
Yeah. Yep.
Which is where she just was. So that's...
And then she goes, "What? What'd you just say to me?" And walks over to him and, like, stands next to him and he goes, "Madison Square Garden." Do you go there often? And she's like, have you been following me? Answers yes. Yes, I followed you here moments ago. And he just follows up by saying, "I'd like to walk you home, Brenda."
He's like, "I'd like to walk you home, Brenda." It's like, it's some creepy ass shit. And he also alludes to seeing wrestling matches there. So, like,
Basketball, wrestling.
yeah. What is his goal here? What is the point of this confrontation? Because he's intimidating her.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, is that the point, that he's trying to scare her off his trail? Like, he knows that she was there to investigate this thing?
Presumably, yeah. I mean, he would have to assume that she's with the police, because who else is there at...
With a metal detector.
Like with a metal detector at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
So maybe it is to scare her off, but at the same time, by scaring her off, he has, like, positively ID'd himself, like, as a person of interest in this. Like, who already was a person of interest, and he's, like, further confirming.
Yeah. Also, this is just really creepy and not heroic or good. He's intimidating this alone woman at a bar. And this is the sexiest man in movies at this time.
Yeah. It's also worth noting Sean Connery is literally in this movie.
Yeah. Oh boy.
The other thing I wanted to mention, I've been doing some sleuthing. Actually, last night I watched about 20 to 30 Russell McKay music videos. In the background, I'll have to show you guys have to check this out if you haven't noticed it. In the background of this bar scene, there is a TV hanging from the ceiling, and it is playing something. It appears to be a music video. My guess is it's a music video. Only because of the director, and it seems like it involves someone playing a piano, and it looks like someone playing drums. It is going about 10 times the correct speed. It is flying by. Like, so they have, like, inserted a video into the TV, like, on the film, and it is lightning speed. It's...
Wow.
And once you see it, you will not be able to unsee it. It is so distracting. Like, every time I tried to look at Connor and Brenda, my eyes just kept going to the side where all this stuff is flashing and flickering and piano fingers are going. It's crazy.
Piano fingers.
So anyone out there who has not noticed this odd background element, check out the bar scene in Highlander for the most baffling, like, weird thing in the background.
I didn't notice it. Did you notice it? That's crazy. Yeah, I gotta watch it.
And I was really hoping to, like, find the music video. Sadly, I couldn't turn it up. I was going through a lot of Elton John stuff because I was hoping that it was going to be one of his, but because of the piano stuff. Whatevers.
Boop.
Oh, so then she follows him out of the bar. Like, she leaves, but, like, lies in wait for him to go.
The tables are turned.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So he gets basically ambushed by the Kurgan. Right. But she sticks her nose in this. And for some reason, he does not have his sword. Despite just going to get it.
Yeah, I don't
know where his sword is.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about this. He tucks it in his coat when he hides from Brenda. Like, that happens on the film. So he should have it. But, yeah, the Kurgan launches his assault on him, and he fights him off with the second pipe of the movie.
Right.
Yeah. Also, I have no idea where the Kurgan comes from because he literally emerges from below where the camera is. Like he was swimming in the concrete and just like was like, ta-da!
Yeah. Maybe he was in the suit.
Mom!
Hi, Mom.
In the script, though, an interesting thing about the script, it says that the Kurgan attacks McLeod so fiercely and quickly that McLeod doesn't have time to draw his sword. So that's the script's excuse for why they aren't sword fighting in this scene.
In the context of the shot, though,
It doesn't work.
he definitely has enough time. If he wanted to take that sword
and he should
out.
have his sword because after this scene, when he goes back to the antique shop, his sword is on him.
Right.
So what happened to it?
Yeah.
I don't
I also think it's funny that
Pipe
like,
Man begins.
Yeah,
Brenda is following him, and he like sneaks into an alley and like ambushes her. Like,
yeah.
and he drags her like into the alley. Like he puts her in more danger by doing that. Like
No. She's no, he doesn't really take her anywhere. She rounds the corner, he pulls her towards him.
Correct.
And is like, what are you doing?
Well, I was just going to say that if he had not done that, there's a good chance because he like ducked into that alley. She might have just kept going, and she would have missed this whole Kurgan extravaganza. So he like
Maybe.
he has drawn her closer to the danger.
In this thing, he doesn't necessarily have a directional Spidey sense.
Correct.
So maybe she would have just walked straight into the Kurgan
That's
sense.
very possible,
So,
too.
Yeah. So
and he doesn't necessarily know it's the Kurgan.
Yeah. So this fight is, I think it's a pretty good fight.
This is awesome.
It's
Yeah.
cool. Also, according to the director's commentary, they filmed all of this in 2 hours.
Wow.
Which is
What?
crazy because also we just talked about the fight with Fazil in Madison
Yeah.
Square Garden, or the fruit stand, which took 8 days to film.
Damn.
And this is like roughly, maybe a little shorter, I
Yeah.
guess, but it's still like a fully fledged.
Yeah, it's good. There's
Battle.
some good weird locations like pipes and like weird spooky blue
I
hallways.
love when Connor
Yeah.
gets the pipe. I love the sound design. Like he
Yeah.
goes to town on the Kurgan, like back and forth. It's like thud thud thud. It's like this is awesome.
At first, I think Connor does pretty well in this fight, and then does really shitty. Like,
It's back again that he's not that much of a badass.
yeah.
And also, this is like I think this is only like the second moment of him being kind of a smartass, where it's like, good to see you again. And he like is getting beaten. He's like, good to
Yeah.
see you too.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. That's different in the script too. Like he says, "Good to see you again, McLeod," and McLeod like insults him or something. But I thought that was funny that they changed that to where he's like, "Good to see you," and then he like gets punched or something. So yeah, that is kind of like Connor is like rascally, like
Yeah.
you said.
Yeah.
Like,
So just to pause on that line, though. Good to see you again, McLeod. Again, as in, I saw you 400 years ago, that time I stabbed you and we didn't speak. Is that the last time they've seen each
Or
other?
do you think
I-
there's an
Is
intermediary?
there supposed to be...
I feel like they've clashed a few times. I don't know why.
I feel
or
that
no.
way. They don't encounter each other again.
I think you're right because of their dialogue in the church later.
Yeah. I almost would have liked if there had been another, like, a flashback to them having another confrontation.
Yeah.
Like, I don't feel like they're rivals necessarily.
Yeah.
Like, they're painted as these opposite ends of a coin, but it looks like they had a coincidental meeting 400 years ago, and it just so happens they're the only ones left.
Right.
They don't seem bound together in any way.
They're right. Another, at least just one. That would be all you need, and maybe a little bit more character building about like why they're fighting each other, and like, you know, knowing that they're opposite sides of a coin would be helpful.
Yeah, because we also get this flashback coming up where we are now, but we have this flashback to him during World War II, kind of randomly. Mm-hmm. Would have been nice. I kind of would have enjoyed it if the Kurgan was involved in that in some way.
Kurgan's
Just
a
something.
Nazi.
Yeah.
Well, first off, I have zero problems believing Kurgan's a Nazi. Second off, something to make it seem like this is a battle they're having through time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah,
Because
agreed.
this is two unrelated meetings. But if
Totally.
it's
Yeah.
like, you know, there's this narrative of them fighting and
Also,
you know,
that they remember each other so well after so long. I mean, the Kurgan.
Yeah, like this
I mean,
is an important thing for him. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I felt like the Kurgan was invested in killing McLeod specifically.
Yeah.
I guess McLeod has reasons to hate the Kurgan, but I don't know if the shoe's necessarily on the other foot. I don't know. I would have enjoyed something to make me buy into the animosity between them a little more.
Yeah.
so a police chopper shows up and
With the biggest weenie ever. Oh, well, the guy's just like, put down your weapons and remain where you are. Hey, where are you going?
Hey, wait a minute.
hey, hey. It's like, aren't you armed? Aren't you supposed to, like, try
Yeah.
to stop them?
Shoot
And they
them.
just walk away.
and who is the biggest weenie ever? But Bill Panzer, producer of Highlander,
Whoa.
delivers that line. That is not him acting in the chopper, but they did a voiceover. And so that is the executive producer, Bill Panzer, and one of the creative driving forces behind the series, delivering the line, "What are you doing?"
Sorry, BP. But, like...
Rest in peace, also.
Yeah. It's just like, why isn't there... There's, like, no action on this. Like...
Yeah.
But they show too much of the cop. Like, they show too much of this guy for him to not have a genuine response.
Right.
Because they just walk away and it's like, no backup is called. It's not a thing.
Yeah.
Also, he's in a chopper. Like, you can follow them virtually anywhere.
yeah.
Like in the city. Like,
It's hard to get away.
Yeah,
You have a giant spotlight. You can follow one of them very effectively.
Yep. So yeah, they just needed clearly some way. They were like, well, we need to have them be reacquainted with each other before the big battle.
Yep.
Why don't we play a clip of, I think this is a nice bit of character building for Connor and gives a theme for the movie a little bit.
Stop! For Christ's sake. Who in the name of God was that? I called you Highlander. What did it mean? There can only be one. Only one what?
Listen, lady, you almost...
I want to know.
Shut up! Don't you ever follow me again. You only have one life. You value it. Go home.
So this is kind of setting up some of the things introduced in this movie, I guess, so us viewers can feel like we are headed in a direction, I guess.
This could be a big theme in the movie. This idea of like having one life, and also like this is the first time I think we see Connor doing a good thing, like valuing someone's life.
He just says, go home.
Yeah,
Like, I don't know
he
that
dismisses her at it.
saying leave is not necessarily an act of heroism. It's not like a villain in this case is like, stick around, see what happens. Like,
Right. So out of this scene, we get another flashback, which is the transition is a truck driving by, which creates like a blackout.
Right.
And then we're in kind of like a bar tavern sort of scene. And again, I was trying to figure out, it's like, oh, is this supposed to mirror the other bar scene? Like, Connor was
right.
in the bar with Brenda.
Yeah.
Now we're definitely in, maybe it's not a bar official sort of thing, but like...
It's
people
supposed
are
to be a
drinking
pub.
and- yeah,
it's
like
supposed to be a pub.
sort of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
people are drinking here. We see all of like Connor's kin talking about him. So we've got Kate's there, Angus, Dougal, cousin Dougal, and they're all talking about what they've seen with Connor, which is that he died and is somehow back to life.
And she thinks he has the devil in him.
Right.
and she's like getting some weird pleasure out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
She
turns
really
on him
turns it
quickly.
on.
So yeah, he comes to the bar and he's like, "Hey friends, I'm back."
Yeah.
Like, and no one is really glad to see him because they think something is afoot here.
Yeah,
Like he
like-
should not be back.
She and Dougal are really against him.
Yeah.
And Angus is kind of...
He's a little more neutral.
Yeah.
So she breaks like a bottle on his head, and then they cut to like this kind of like banishment scene outside where
Yeah.
people are stoning him. Also, this entire scene is cut as well from the American, or not entire scene, portions of this scene.
The scene where he gets headbutted like 6 times
Yes.
by a crazy person
Yeah.
is cut.
So they make it like less violent. I don't know if I disagree with that or not. I think the extremities of this makes it like more powerful. You know, like the pain he had to suffer. Again, he is now has a piece of wood strapped behind him. Like there's more crucifix imagery. Like he is a bloodied man on what appears to be like a cross. Like he's in a crucifix stance. So we get this kind of imagery of him as a martyr.
Can you walk?
I can bloody well walk out of here. Terrible.
Yeah.
Nice. Don't ever do that again, Keith. Ever try to do a Scottish impression on this show. Sorry.
So Angus saves him by saying, like, instead of the crowd wants to burn him, especially
Yeah.
Kate is way into burning him.
She is like wet over trying to burn him. It's like... She wants to do that like more than... She's more excited about burning him than like kissing him when he was leaving for battle. Like...
So Angus kind of steps in and says, whoa, whoa, whoa. Or we'll banish him, we won't burn him.
Right.
And he, like, saves his life, and he's able to leave.
So he leaves the little village, and then we get I think another really great dissolve into the present. Connor kind of rests himself on a rock, and then it dissolves into a painting of a mural of the Mona Lisa.
Who looks high.
She has red eyes.
Yeah, she's got very red eyes.
Yes.
She's blazed out of her mind.
Apparently this was like filmed backwards. So they found that mural in New York City. It's in Chelsea as well, and they thought it was really cool. So they shot that first when they were in New York, and then when they were back in Scotland, they filmed just a little scene where Connor like leaned against the rock, so they could transition back to that. So this wasn't planned. It was like backwards engineered, essentially. It's an interesting mural by Stefano Castronova. I don't believe it's there anymore. Sadly, it was on the side of a restaurant called the Mona Lisa. But yeah, he actually was kind of like a famous Italian artist at the time, like for doing these sort of like controversial murals. Like he had 2 Mona Lisa ones, I believe, in New York.
So why did they come back to the future? They come back to the future. They show the High Mona Lisa. He goes home to his like sweet loft that has a treasure room in it, and he kind of sits back on. I actually think he sits back on Ramirez's tunic thing, like is on his chair, and he like sits on.
So we haven't talked about this room. So he goes into his apartment, which is like this totally sweet, awesome place. Like
Loft,
it's like
yes.
it's this,
Badass.
the best place you could ever live in New York. And
Black
he's got,
leather couches.
Yeah. So he's got like this crazy special secret room thing. It's like hexagonal. I know that like, in the commentary, like the people involved call it the silver room. I don't know what that means, but it's the silver room. But it's this kind of very special, like kind of little place at the heart of his apartment.
And then it cuts back to the past, and that's it.
Yeah.
Nothing else happens in the future.
Really weird.
It shows him go home, and then it goes back to the
that's
past.
it.
I don't know why this was here. Like, what was the point?
Yeah.
I mean, I liked a lot of the shots. I thought there were some cool shots, but like,
Yeah, I'm curious if there was any more.
was something supposed to
substance
happen? It like the ball stays exactly where it was,
Yeah.
and then it
That's
goes
a good
back.
point. I
I
think
think
about
that I think they were just like gun shy about being in the past too much, and they needed a way to get from him being banished to now we're in the past, and he's like reestablished himself on like.
That could be just like the way you would have an establishing shot for something. It's like, oh, let's just put the establishing shot in the present instead of the past.
Yeah,
like it's like we just need to skip some time, so we put a blank shot in somewhere. And
Well,
it's
he's at home, and then he's at home in the past flashback.
That's
I don't
true.
know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't quite understand what the.
It's weird. Yeah.
It felt like filler to me.
Yeah.
Right.
Despite liking elements of it.
Yeah, the room is cool.
Yeah,
and I like
but-
that idea, and the TV show picks up on that, too.
Yeah, definitely. Like, but yeah, they're definitely surrounded by kind of their history, which is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like 80 seconds.
Yeah.
And nothing
That's true.
plot wise happens.
Okay, so every Tuesday morning, I wake up, I'm ready to go to work, I get ready to listen to Highlander Rewatch podcast, I go to Facebook, I click on the SoundCloud link, then I listen to the SoundCloud podcast. I don't have time for this. It's time to go to work.
How can we save time, Keith?
Yeah, you can just go to whatever podcast app you're using and click subscribe.
So what happens then?
It saves you 30 seconds every time you want to listen to the podcast, but you get updates each and every week letting you know when there's new Highlander Rewatch content to listen to.
So you mean in a whole year I can save 26 minutes?
Absolutely.
That's enough time to watch an entire half-hour primetime TV show.
Or some of a Highlander episode that you've already seen before.
We're dicks.
I know.
So we find ourselves in Scotland again, and McLeod's doing some, blacksmithing?
Yeah, it's like he's at like a forge. I guess that's what this place is.
He's making a horseshoe.
Yeah.
So he has a new setup here. It looks pretty nice. He has like a weird castle thing.
Yeah, did he build that castle? I was kind of curious.
I have no idea. Maybe it's...
No, he did not build that castle. Because also he doesn't rebuild it. They live there for like 80 more years, and he doesn't rebuild this castle
That's true. So
when it's destroyed.
He stumbled upon a castle.
Abandoned castle.
Yep.
Which is awesome. I want to live in an abandoned castle, but fine.
Right.
Yeah.
It's kind of a real place. So they built like those exterior huts and stuff. This is actually really interesting. So, like, I guess
Is
it's like. So outside there are like some like sheds or what, like where his like little blacksmithing thing is. That's apart from the castle that they built there. The castle is kind of there, although it's only a third of the size. Like it's already was kind of in ruins. The first half or first third of the castle is real. The rest is a matte painting, which is really cool. Since we're in the digital age, if you don't know what a matte painting is, that was kind of the way they did film effects, like special effects back in the day, which involves like essentially painting like painting on glass and then overlaying that on the film, so you could add a background. And a million movies use this technique.
It's ye olde green screen, basically.
Basically, right. Yeah. And it's actually, I think it's great. I love, like, you can't beat a good matte painting.
Yeah,
I don't
you
think,
can't.
like, digital stuff doesn't come close to, like, the warmth and, like, I think even, like, realism of a matte painting. Like, I shouldn't even say realism, but like hyper, like it gives this like beautiful quality to a movie, I think.
Yeah.
It's
I
more
agree.
tactile than green screen stuff. Like a lot of times when you see, especially in that transition period where CG technology is starting to become really prevalent, but people haven't quite nailed it yet. Like when you see like the old Matrix movie or like the Ang Lee Hulk is a big offender of this, where like things feel really artificial.
Yeah,
or,
there's like a spatial problem.
Yeah, these feel really like warm and tactile.
Yeah.
And that's something that's hard to replace.
Yeah. So anyway, the rest of the castle is essentially painted on top of the real set.
And looks fantastic.
And it looks great.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's really interesting is this is filmed in a place, I believe, called the Queen's Cairn. And it was a place that Queen Victoria visited in 1783 and had like a picnic there. And this is considered a sacred place. Like there are these very big rocks there, which I guess you see them kind of picnicking around at one point. Anyway, they were told, of course, by the government, like, hey, you cannot like mess with any of the stuff here. Like, this is a historical site. Don't fuck around with this. And they were like, okay, we'll do that. And so then they just like brought in like cranes and moved the rocks and built the set on top of where they shouldn't have built it. And they were like, we film real quick and then we'll move it all back. So this is like real down and dirty filmmaking on top of what would be holy ground, which is something no immortal would ever defile.
Yipes.
Yep. I thought that was pretty good.
So now we get to meet...
So he's making horseshoes and stuff. So.
Yeah, he's making horseshoes and stuff. We get to meet his new wife, Heather.
Heather. She's got pie and ale for him.
Mm-hmm.
And she's a lovely, happy seeming sort.
Yeah.
She seems much better than his old boo.
Yeah. She's played by Beattie Edney. She's a British actress. She's absolutely beautiful in this, I think.
Yeah,
well, I think
she is.
She's a pretty lady. Mm-hmm. She's gone on to do a lot of like kind of TV stuff, a lot of producing work. But actually, I wanted to comment on the music here. This is, I think, the first time we get a sense of like the Highlander score. Aside from, I guess, maybe the battle scene has a little kind of like battle music, but I find it's kind of just background stuff. It's not really recognizable. But I find this music to have like that Highlander flavor to it. But something that's interesting. So it opens. It's all just a violin playing. But they're playing basically just like the open strings of a violin. And so this is kind of like the harmonics, you would say. I don't want to get too much into music theory here.
You've already used the phrase open strings and followed it with the word harmonics, so... for a penny, in for a pound, I guess.
I guess so. So anyway, the harmonic series is essentially what Western music's harmonies are based upon. And that would be our scales, our chords, which are notes stacked on top of one another. The point is that this system is derived based on what are the natural occurring vibrations in essentially any given object, but you would say in this case a string. So you have one tone in a string, you cut it in half, that's an octave. You cut it in half again, you get like a fifth, a fourth, third, major second, minor second. It goes on. But these are the way like strings. These are the way things vibrate naturally, and I think it's really interesting that the music that we're reintroduced to Connor as when he's finally his immortal self are these kind of open strings, these harmonics, and it's a thing that is completely natural. Like this is how music exists essentially in nature. Like you could hit a tree branch and it wouldn't sound very nice because it's very irregular or whatever, but like natural objects have this resonance in them, and I think it's an interesting way that this is scored. That Connor is scored with like natural sounds.
That is interesting. No, I was being sincere. That is interesting.
Yeah.
You were giving me a look when I was describing it.
Well, that was a long wind up for that pitch.
I'm sorry for the road trip we just went on.
But that's something that would never have occurred to me.
I thought it was interesting. And also, you could just say it's it's an open strings on the violin. It's like the absolute simplest thing you could ever play. Like, you know what I mean? Like it also kind of conveys like a like homeliness, like
rustic quality.
Yeah, very rustic quality. Like these aren't necessarily like formed things. Like if you just had a violin, like you could play the opening notes to this theme just by doing nothing. So it's got this very simplistic feel to it, which lends itself to a lot of kind of like folk music. Like those sort of things are kind of built on these very simplistic harmonies and stuff. So that's my little musical analysis for that. But also I think you can interpret it as, like I said earlier, that the Kurgan is maybe a little mechanical, maybe Connor is a little more on the natural side, which is evidenced in his music, especially because the Kurgan's music is all heavy metal guitar. It's electric guitar. It's not even like,
Right.
You know what I mean? And this is a violin.
So Heather says to Connor, "You're all muck and muscle," and then they get to mucking and muscling.
Absolutely.
And
the Bone Zone.
Is Connor a 2-hump chump? I'm just gonna leave that question there for a second.
Oh my god.
Excuse me, a 2-stroke joke. So
They have like a little picnic.
Well, she's like, you can do that to me forever if you want to, but maybe she's really saying like, you can go more, like you can go longer, right? It doesn't have to last that short.
But anyway, the afterglow of this whole event is interrupted by
A horse.
a horse, named Sean
Jumping.
Connery.
Yep, right over. So yeah, Sean Connery voices a horse in this movie. And that's why he was cast in Dragonheart, because he had experience. Anyway.
Very good.
Lovely.
So yeah, Sean Connery jumps over them on his horse.
And what is Sean Connery's name in this movie?
Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez.
That's right.
Chief metallurgist to who? The King of Spain?
King Charles V of Spain. Although I was trying to find this. I believe this line is actually changed in the international version or director's cut. That is, he is not the metallurgist to the King of Spain. I believe in the original theatrical version, he's the metallurgist to the King of England at the time, or whoever. It's someone different, and for some reason they changed it. Yeah, I don't know. It's a very small change, but it was apparently made. But I thought this was interesting because he is the metallurgist to the King of Spain, and we have Brenda, who is a expert in metallurgy and wrote a book with the term metallurgy like in the title. So I was like, oh, are these two characters kind of like paralleled together a little bit? And we'll get into this later. I kind of wish they were a little more.
I think the answer is no, but
Right.
that is such a striking...
I agree.
When asked,
The
what do
answer
two-
is no.
Yeah. But when asked, like, hey, two people have metallurgy in common, that's not like saying, like, we both like basketball.
Right.
Like...
So that's when you're allergic to metal?
So anyway, they meet. Connor is clearly feeling ill.
Yeah.
And he says, "Do as I say, woman," as he
Yeah.
pushes Heather away. It's like,
Go
all right.
inside, yeah.
Yeah.
So she leaves, and weirdness ensues, I guess is fair to say.
Should we play this introduction of Sean Connery?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's play the clip and then we'll talk about it.
Smooching.
There's a weird flash of light when the horse jumps over.
Greetings. I am Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, Chief Metallurgist to King Charles V of Spain, and I'm at your service.
Who?
What do you want?
You. You're Connor MacLeod.
The weather is
Maybe I
instantly
am.
You're
changed.
Connor MacLeod, wounded in battle and driven from your village of Glenfinnan 5 years ago.
Connor!
Heather, go in the house.
I'll stay right here.
Do as I say, woman.
So I just want to point out one difference in the script. Greetings, I am Juan Sanchez Villalobos Ramirez, Chief Metallurgist to King Philip II of Spain. And he did not say that there. I
No.
forget the name he said.
Say King Charles V of Spain was what.
I'm ignorant of my Spanish history, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if that's just a timeline thing. Like they wanted to. Did they get something wrong or?
I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure Philip II was like the grandest king of like Spain at the height of its power. Like I thought Philip II was the one that like paid for Christopher Columbus's voyage and almost conquered England.
Well, that would be earlier than this, so maybe they wanted to correct it for the timeline's sake.
Maybe, I'm not sure. And again, I did not pause to research that. This is kind of off the cuff. So
Yeah.
someone can correct me on that, but
Interesting. So yeah, let's talk about what is going on here. So
that's a great question.
so Ramirez shows up when he does leap over Connor and Heather. There is a flash of light, which is interesting.
Yeah.
the storm starts brewing
Immediately.
Like they're having a very nice picnic.
It's beautiful
Yeah.
outside, and then it is dark and cloudy
Right.
with lightning and thunder.
Also, I'd like to point out in the script, Ramirez walks to their location. He's not on a horse. That's interesting. I don't know.
Is it?
He's well, he's like
It sounds a lot better on the horse.
well, it's like less dramatic, and he's
Right.
like complaining about how hard the walk is. So it's kind of funny, but
That is kinda
it's a little less dramatic.
Right. Well, that implies that, like, yeah, he's made a long journey here, that he's been doing this for
Yeah,
maybe in the sense of this movie, like years he could have traveled to meet Connor.
yeah.
Which could be
Well, because getting anywhere would have taken years.
Right.
Like, I have thoughts on this that'll emerge later, but this man's done a lot of fucking traveling.
he does mention some interesting, like, timeline sort of stuff. He's like, he gives like a synopsis of McLeod, so clearly he knows something about McLeod. Just the way he knows a lot, just the way that Kurgan did. But he's like, oh, you were driven from Glenfinnan 5 years ago, and it's like, oh, so how old is McLeod right now? Like when McLeod got banished, he told his cousin Dougal that he's like, we've been kinsmen for 20 years. So if that was 20 years, this is 5 years later. So Connor's approximately 25 years old at this point. Although approximately 20 years old when he gets his immortality.
Maybe, unless he's like his clansman by marriage or something like that.
Correct. That's
So
possible.
who knows? Because also, Nash in the future does not look 20.
Yeah.
He is emphatically
how old do you think Christopher Lambert is?
Oh, that's a great question.
39, 42.
Eamon, you got a thought?
40, I'd say. Like,
Right.
yeah.
He's got to look to him. 29.
What?
Yep.
Wow.
That's how old he's supposed to be, or how old Christopher Lambert
That
is?
is how old Christopher Lambert is. And I believe, according to like the script and the things laid out in the movie, I think he's supposed to be like mid-20s. If not even younger.
He's
The-
an
the way they-
old-looking man.
Well, I think everyone in the 80s looks older. Like today, everyone looks younger. Shit in the 80s, everyone looks older because people are like tanned. They're wearing ill-fitting clothing. They're-
Smoking.
Yeah.
His
Like,
voice, I think, adds to it. Like he's got a gravelly voice,
Yeah.
so he doesn't sound young. Like if you only heard him do voice work, you would think he was older.
I buy him as that age in these flashbacks. But
yeah,
that's not how
that's-
But when I think of him as Russell Nash in the future, and
Yeah.
that man looks much older.
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would think like late 30s. You
Yeah.
would think.
Yeah.
But no, he is. Like,
Whereas if the whole
very
time he
young
was
man.
clean shaven with that hair, and you said he was 29, I'd
Yeah.
have no trouble buying it.
Yeah.
Sure.
Then probably one of the most puzzling things in this movie happens, which is, first off, he teleports away from Ramirez.
Right.
Like he vanishes and reappears on the frontier, or horizon is the word I was looking for, and then just gets struck by lightning, and Ramirez says, "What you're feeling is the quickening," and he points at him.
Yep.
And then they teleport close together again.
Yeah.
So, is this a good time to talk about what is the quickening? There's
It's as good a time as any.
Yeah.
But
well, on TV, Highlander, quickening is you chop off a mortal head, you get the quickening.
Right.
You take their quickening,
Right.
as what's his face would say.
Caleb Cole.
Yeah.
Get your quickening. Blah. Oh man, my voice worked today. Dougal. Sorry, everyone.
But in this, the quickening is just the state of being immortal.
no, I think
It's like the buzz a little bit, like what we call like the immortal Spidey sense all the time. It's like that seems to be the quick, like
No, I
No?
don't think so. I think this is a quickening, and what happens when they cut off the head is the quickening.
But what's when he gets the buzz? Is that the buzz? Like, is that something different than this?
That's not named. At some point, Ramirez says that
He feels
sickening,
sick.
the sickening feeling you got.
Yeah.
That's that. So the buzz is in a different form, but that's not the quickening. So why does this happen here? Like, what triggers this? He doesn't kill anyone. He's just like informed. Someone telling you you're immortal causes this to happen? I don't understand what
I think this is one of those like music video sort of things where it's like imagery trumps any sort of reason, like, or logic to this. It's like this does, I think, give you like a feeling, like with the music, and like the images are compelling with him like reaching to the sky and getting like struck by lightning is like visually cool and arresting. But it's like none of this makes any sense. Like it's like, huh?
I just don't understand what is happening. And then it like reskins potentially what these other things are. And then there's also this weird joke that Sean Connery says later where they're about to hold hands and jump into the river, and they're like, this is the quickening.
Let's talk about it more when we get some like more info from it, like on it from the movie.
Yeah. But it's fair to say that the state of nature here is confusion.
Right.
Definitely. And again, this is the first mention of this term, I believe, right? We've not heard quickening mentioned earlier than this.
No.
So.
But Sean Connery has a righteous point when he says it.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting that he's also wearing this, like, insane outfit.
Yeah, he has,
let's talk about this.
Peacock feathered cloak that's, like, flowing and huge. It's, like...
It's enormous.
Yeah.
I had some notes on this. Actually, less notes and more questions. Why is he dressed like this? So
It builds a lot of character.
So
Yeah.
we find out...
I like it.
I guess...
I like it, too.
I was wondering... I don't think Spanish. Is this a Spanish outfit? Maybe the hat is. I don't know.
I have no idea.
It's got peacock feathers all over it. Like it's super flamboyant and ridiculous. Mm-hmm. At one point, Connor calls him, "You like stupid Spanish peacock." Mm-hmm. I was kind of wondering which came first. Did the script call him a peacock as just being like, oh, like using the term peacock is like, oh, you're an arrogant jerk, you know, like you strut around or whatever, like you're full of yourself, so we called him a Spanish peacock. Then the costume designer read that and was like, oh, peacock, like let's actually make him look like a little full of himself, and like they dressed him in a grandiose way. Or did it come the other way and like they dressed him like that and they were like, oh, like let's insult him, and they called him a peacock. I'm very curious which, like the chicken or the egg in this scenario.
I think the first scenario you laid out is the most likely.
That it was written in the script and the costume designer read it and then interpreted that to be a more real world thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like buy into it. Like nothing.
He carries it well.
Yeah,
Oh, sure.
he pulls it off. Like
Yeah.
I'm on board. It's weird, but like whatever. Like
It's a good character.
Yeah.
And it fits him well. Connery acquits himself very well in this role.
And so then Connery, like, kind of connects himself with McLeod. Like, they share a bond. And what does he say?
We're brothers!
Yes, he
it's
does.
awesome.
It gives a warm feeling in my heart to hear him say that. And it's like, you can't help but like him. He's like so jovial, and he's not like the Kurgan where the first time he met McLeod, he stabbed him in the gut and tried to chop his head off. Like,
Yes, you're right. In that sense, they are different.
this is something...
Hey, fellow rewatchers. Thanks again for joining us for our third installment of our Highlander Motion Picture podcast. Join us next week for episode 4 as we delve even further into Highlander mythology when we talk about New Yorkers eating dogs, Balance, Ramirez's death, and a lot more. Thanks again for listening. See you next week. We've been your rewatchers, Keith, Kyle, and Eamon. Bye.
Scotland again.
I would start that whole sentence. Not just Scotland again.
Scotland.
Again. That's what the title card says at the bottom. Scotland. Again.
Cruising for some ass, Garfield.